Following the news this week that the federal government rejected a call to reverse its decision on an outright ban on a pesticide used against Richardson's ground squirrels, historically, strychnine has been used by farmers to control the rodents' population and reduce the damage they cause to crops and to livestock. The federal government banned the pesticide 2 years ago, and advocates were hoping to overturn it this spring. And we heard from one such advocate. Wade Nelson is a farmer just west of High River, joined us on the show yesterday. He says he's open to stricter regulations, but challenges the outright ban.
Some of the suggestions were, okay, let's tighten that window even. Say you can only have it for a tighter window, say May or March, April, and May, when we actually really need it. And maybe make us have our application license like we do with chemicals. That was ignored. It's just easy for them to say, well, strychnine's bad, and that's that.
Now, others support the government's rationale to maintain the ban. Colleen St. Clair is a professor of biological sciences at the University of Alberta. So what do you make of the federal government keeping its strychnine ban in place?
I think they're probably doing the right thing in terms of a global move towards eliminating the use of this particular pesticide. It's a really nasty one. It kills animals in a terrible way by causing so much muscle rigidity that they basically suffocate. And worse, it's very, very long-lasting in tissue and in soil and in water. It settles into the sediment. So it can kill lots of non-target animals after it's applied for a target like ground squirrels. This is most famous for the predators of ground squirrels. So that would be, common things like coyotes, but less common things like bald eagles and grizzly bears, even family pets. Lots of examples of that. So that's why it's been banned in other locations. It's been banned in Europe, throughout Europe since 2006. It's been banned for surface use in the US since 1988. So in a way, Canada is just catching up with these other countries.
Let's stay on the sort of challenges around or concerns around its use. Like going up that chain, are there risks to humans from strychnine use in agriculture, like that application to deal with gophers?
Oh, probably not to humans, unless you like to eat dead gophers that are in this rigid posture, reminiscent of like Agatha Christie novels. It was her favorite way for murders to occur. So strychnine has been used to kill people, but it wouldn't happen incidentally from agricultural use.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you invoked Agatha Christie, because strychnine has a sort of cultural significance because of its use in literature and storytelling, and perhaps every now and then in reality. But in the case of its agricultural application, the Provincial Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation, R.J. Sigurdsson, issued a statement on the federal government's decision, saying he hoped the government would reconsider that ban on an emergency use registration for 2% of liquid strychnine. Is there a safe amount of strychnine, and is there mitigation around, its use more responsibly in agriculture?
Well, I'm super sympathetic to the plight of farmers, and I can really see why they're worried about the loss of this tool. I saw the minister's statement and listened to the interview with Wade Nelson, and he did a great job of explaining the challenge. But I think it would be possible to mitigate that estimated 10 to 20% loss of yield in years with high ground squirrels in other ways. Maybe not as easily and effectively as strychnine alone, but there's a bunch of other tools that could be used to do this while retaining some of the benefits that ground squirrels have for ecosystems.
Let's get into the details then, because Wade Nelson said, look, they're less effective, more expensive, they don't quite get there. But from a research perspective, what do you see as the potential alternatives and their effectiveness?
Yeah, Wade mentioned one of them, another poison, zinc phosphide. It has very limited non-target effects, so it doesn't have this problem of killing the predators, and remaining in the predator for a long period of time. Strychnine can remain in the soil and remain very toxic for years. Zinc phosphide doesn't have those characteristics. It's harder to use and more expensive, but it could be one of the tools. Another tool would be the anticoagulant rodenticides. I don't recommend those. They're very commonly used, say, around buildings. But they're even more cruel. They take multiple doses and days to kill animals, and it kills them basically by causing them to bleed to death internally. So another approach would be to support more of the ground squirrel predators, maybe making their peace with coyotes, farmers tolerating more coyotes, but also supporting aerial predators. And this was a great thing that Wade mentioned. He mentioned that his family was building some nesting platforms for aerial predators like Swainson's hawks, ferruginous hawks, which actually specialize on ground squirrels, red-tailed hawks. Those would all be helpful. And then for high-value crops like canola, another technique is to build buffers around the canola that the ground squirrels would have to go through of things that they don't like to eat as much, like barley. And then another technique that I think could be an emerging business opportunity for somebody is to fill burrows with pressurized CO2 gas. So this would take some time to build the apparatus, and then it would be a recurrent application. You'd have to go around and use it repeatedly. But this is very humane. So humane, in fact, that when I worked on Columbian ground squirrels in the national parks, the Animal Care and Use Committee of the university made me build a CO2 chamber and carry CO2 canisters in case I lethally injured an animal and had to dispatch it quickly. So CO2 is the gold standard of a humane way to kill animals. And of course, there's also traps that can be installed near or even inside of burrows. So all of these things together, perhaps in addition to insurance or compensation schemes, they could make it tolerable for farmers to lose the tool of strychnine.
I want to kind of bring the costs and benefits of strychnine or strychnine versus the suite of alternatives you're talking about. Like the damages caused by Richardson ground squirrels, gophers can cost farmers a lot of money, can cost the industry a lot of money, a lot of productivity. What would you say to a farmer who might hear that list of suggestions, including CO2, and say, whoa, that doesn't sound realistic on hundreds of acres of crop?
Well, ground squirrels are highly colonial animals, so if you got them under control and then treated those sites where they've re-invaded, if you will, they've managed to disperse to a site again, over time, I think that would become more sustainable. And I would imagine that wouldn't be something that every farmer would build. Maybe it would be more like a company would specialize that and in that technique, and it would travel around and treat all the farms in an area. It isn't, it isn't a silver bullet. I don't think it would be a great tool by itself, but we could broaden the ledger sheet a little bit and consider the benefits that ground squirrels have. So Wade also mentioned the problem they're having in southern Alberta with drought. Well, ground squirrels are a really effective way, because of the way they burrow, of getting rain to enter the soil at deeper levels. And then, of course, soil holds moisture. It travels osmotically through the soil. So that would reduce the impact of drought to have the presence of ground squirrels. And Richardson's ground squirrels are really the basis of the food chain in Canadian grasslands. So they have a whole bunch of beneficial effects on ecosystems that maybe should be part of that accounting as well.